All right, so hi, Seva and Cheryl, welcome. Thank you so much for being here today.
You're welcome, Jen.
Pleasure.
Yeah, such an honor to have you here. It's partially selfish because I benefit so much from what you share and feel like this is a treat for me and for the people that will watch, so thank you.
It's a treat for us too.
Yay. I'm gonna just introduce you guys to our audience. Okay, so Seva's work combines the transcendental nature of yoga and tantra with the emotional reprocessing techniques of reevaluation counseling and bodywork practices of pelvic heart integration as developed by Jack Painter. Wow. Seva, that all sounds really interesting. Seva has honed his skills over 40 years of teaching private practice and multiple relationship styles. He has definitely learned the hard way and has a lot of compassion for couples' issues such as communication, power struggles, and sexual satisfaction. Awesome. Welcome, Seva. Cheryl Good blends her years as an educator, professional flutist, energy healer, and workshop leader into her private sessions and events. Her passions is to create environments where her clients and students can dive deeply into transformation and experience greater spiritual, sexual, and emotional freedom. She is co-founder of Love and Sex Mastery and has recently established a school for the sexual healing arts, the Laughing Empress Academy for Sexual Enlightenment. Awesome. Love that name. That's great.
I will say that my yoni named the school. And so yoni, for someone who may think that sounds like My Little Pony.
Okay. Did she say pony or yoni? Okay.
So you mentioned in Seva's bio, Tantra, and the version that we get here in the West is very much a Neo-Tantra version.
Mm-hmm.
Something I really do like is that the words that are used to describe, to name genitals are really beautiful. Yoni in Sanskrit means sacred space, cosmic matrix.
Sounds really rolls off the tongue so much better than the other words that we have.
Yes.
Yes.
Plus those other words can be true.
I kind of like the word pussy, but
Yes. And I do too. We're in agreement. And yet I understand for some other people, some women especially, that hasn't been used in their context. That's felt honoring.
Sure. Yeah, totally. And what the male version of that is lingam, right?
Yes,
in Sanskrit.
Exactly. Right.
And so what is the Sanskrit meaning for that? So yoni is cosmic matrix.
Or sacred space.
Sacred space.
wand of light.
Is it really?
Wand of
That's
light.
like the Sanskrit translation?
Yes.
Very
Well,
cool.
that's the
news to me.
Neo-Tantra
Right.
interpretation.
The westernized
Westernized.
interpretation of what that means. Yeah.
Okay.
To me, it really gives honor to the parts of us that are so important. Like literally the aspect of us that can create life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's such a powerful area and topic. So I really appreciate that you just bring that to the surface to share. Maybe could you share a little bit about your awakening in your sexual essence and honoring your sexual energy more in that way?
So it occurs to me that as we had discussed what we might be talking about in this interview, what we were going to start with, we actually started with something different.
Yes.
So what that reminds me is that talk about the things that might feel uncomfortable to talk about.
Yeah.
And so that's something, and we will get to talking about when people trigger each other, when people in relationship do. And what we do advocate is to talk about the things that you're not comfortable with. And in our practice, we find that sexuality is such an uncomfortable topic because there's not been a lot of modeling around how to have those kind of conversations. And people will willfully, gleefully take their clothes off and be what seems like they're really vulnerable. And yet, they may have never had a conversation around, what is it, what do I like? And so this leads me to your question, sort of what my awakening was in all of that. So if I was to write a blog, and I am, it would be titled Suburban Chicago Housewife to Sedona Sexual Healer.
Whoa.
I know. I'm trying to
Yeah.
More like, shh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
So the awakening came in my late 40s. And at that time, I truly had everything that I ever wanted, which was a very stable relationship, a husband, a house in the suburbs, 2 children, 2 cats, 2 cars. So I did have everything that I wanted. And as I did progress, as I matured, I had this thought right before my 50th birthday, if I'm ever going to get to be a goddess, not knowing in any way what goddess would invoke, and I'm talking about a real, like, actual practical invoking, I thought, I have to get to this. Like, I'm at the midpoint of my life. So for me, that came from first belly dancing, which I will feel compelled to say that the origins of belly dance were women dancing for women. They were dancing for each other. So it was a way to honor the life cycles of women, pregnancy, childbirth, and all the movements mimic nature. So I started to feel a lot of freedom in my body. And the movements are so sensual and they're so strong. And I think that started to wake up a part of me. And at the same time, I was really ready to address my own sexual shutdown.
Yeah.
Like, complete, don't touch me. I felt frozen. So that's working with a healer that was his specialty, working in the sexual healing arts, is when my awakening happened. And when I came to Sedona for the first time. So, I mean, that's the cliffhanger right there.
And then she arrived.
And then she came to Sedona.
Awesome.
And here we are, sitting in Sedona.
Yeah.
In our healing space, our session space, right now.
Wow.
And Cheryl's definitely no longer shut down.
Thank you.
Definitely.
Pretty much the opposite.
Right. The laughing empress kind of says it all.
Yes. So she did name the school. One of the techniques I use with women is to have a dialogue with that exquisitely powerful, very intelligent part of our female body, our female spirit, is our yoni.
Yeah, I so appreciate, we were talking about this a little on our hike, I was asking, like, when did this all unfold for you and your shift? And that it happened after you had kids, after you were married, after you had this whole life, really. And it seems, I don't know if this is true, but it seems it's sometimes harder for people at that stage of life when they've really put so many roots down and, cultivated such a strong foundation of how the structure of how they're living their relationships, to then have a total transformation from that point. So, and I think it's really important at any phase of life, of course, for a woman to really get in touch with her sexual essence. But, I was surprised to hear that, because I feel like you are so open and so free in that way. Like, you must have been at this for ever, and maybe you have been on a certain level. But just, like, I really, respect that you've taken that leap, really a big leap, and, like, expanded and transformed in such a big way. And yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. And then I'm privileged to support women as they find themselves at that point in their life. And for some women, it's in their 20s. And for many women, it is not until about that midlife point, because so much energy has been involved in a career, a family, and that's overcoming programming, or the word that is used sometimes is the default world.
Right.
Which would be a good place to introduce Seva.
Let's go your defaults.
Okay. Get the transition, but that's okay. To expand on what Cheryl was saying, a phrase we use is the yoni doesn't lie. In other words, she became shut down. And she didn't want to, because, she was in marriage and, supposed to have sex, right?
Yeah.
But so she wanted to fulfill her duty or her commitment or whatever. But she couldn't.
Mm-hmm.
She just couldn't. And the yoni took over.
Mm-hmm.
And for men, it's very similar, actually, in terms of do you get too aroused or not aroused enough?
Mm-hmm.
And so the cock also doesn't lie.
Mm-hmm.
And I noticed this with myself. I went through a period where I wasn't getting as aroused in situations where I thought I would be.
Mm-hmm.
Like I meet at a party or at an event, I meet an attractive woman and she's interested, and maybe later we're in bed and nothing's happening. I couldn't believe it. Yeah.
Right.
What is going on here? So I went through a period like that.
Mm.
Before that, there was a period where I would become too excited and would come too soon.
Mm-hmm.
After a few minutes, and that I had to overcome that as well. That was prior to that lack of arousal phase. But my path is, I think, a little bit different than Cheryl's in that I was very aware of sexual pleasure from an early age, and never lost my interest in it. And it's informed my life all the way through.
Mm.
And my main problem was just shame about my interests
Mm-hmm.
or my pleasures.
Mm-hmm.
It took a while to overcome that. And for the most part, I don't have that anymore, but occasionally comes up.
Even you.
Yes, after all these years. Yeah, so it's crazy how much. And this is kind of a foundational principle for me in my writing some books now, that that sexual energy within the self and socially, with sharing with your partner, is such a foundational power or motivation, or has such an effect on how we relate to each other. Just the simplest, stupidest little things. I go to touch Cheryl, she goes,
right,
pulls away. Like, what does that mean? Oh, she doesn't like me anymore. And maybe we won't have sex tonight or tomorrow morning because now something's off. And so those little teeny weeny little things affect so much of our behavior. Communications, you might think about it at work, and it's hurts your productivity. Very extent, and so my theory as to how to deal with that is to become more and more and more aware of how those things affect you, and own it. Be not suppressing it, but go, oh wow, that really freaked me out just now. And it's not
specifically, do you mean sexual, the subtleties of sexual interaction?
Yes.
Or anything involving touch and
it's all works together.
Yeah.
Like, this would be a feeling of rejection.
Okay.
Rejection is huge for both genders. And fear, anxiety, insecurity, all depression, all these things are so related to am I getting it? And if not, why? And is the person that I am really attracted to and want to have sex with wanting to have sex with me?
Mm-hmm. So those basic things,
just
you think,
totally primal things,
just super primal, basic foundational things.
Yeah.
Then spurt out into, expand out into all these different levels of communication and how we feel just day to day.
Day to day.
Yeah. So would you say that cultivating that communication, like what are the key things? If that's sort of foundational, it sounds like, then
yes.
What are some of the key things to be aware of to cultivate in that sexual dynamic with your partner or whoever you're with? to have the healthiest expression in those other ways? I mean, is it just about having great sex? I mean, or, what do you do when one person is not interested and one person is? And, I mean, I know that's like huge, right?
Yes.
It's like a big blanket topic, but maybe, all of these things are like, we go so deep with them. But
which reminds me that really when we're talking about sex, we're talking about life.
Mm-hmm.
Life in all of its expressions. So the drive to connect, and for some people that turns into reproducing. And even if it doesn't, the drive is so strong. And it's when that drive can't be experienced in a way that's understood.
Yeah.
And Seva talked about shame. And I think that's one of the biggest inhibitors. And it starts with self-shaming.
Mm-hmm.
And I see this with women a lot. They don't accept their own bodies.
Mm-hmm.
They don't like the way their bodies look. And where did they get all that messaging from? No infant is born going, God, my thighs,
Yeah.
they're just too chubby.
Right.
Oh, I really got to do something about that. That's right. That's right. So that's not an innate quality.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody is born hating their physical vessel.
Sure.
And that starts pretty early on,
Mm-hmm.
the messages, and it does come from a lot of sources, but especially media, anything with a visual, which is that you are to look like this, and if you don't look like this, then we're going to sell you things. So you can tell yourself that you're going to look like that.
Right.
So I think the very basic understanding that self-acceptance has to be the ongoing process. I'll even start with self-like. For some of my clients, I'm like, okay, self-love sounds like too overwhelming, to go from I don't like this to I love this. But to cultivate some reasons that you can like yourself, and that relationship is the proving ground. I mean, it is the crucible of all.
Right. Yeah.
Finding out about self.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Just to extract and some of what I'm hearing here, it sounds like this foundational piece of starting to let go of the shame, healing the shame and the programming we've taken on from media, and sort of shifting that to really honoring the sexual drive as this desire for life. Having an awareness, a healthy awareness. And I don't feel like that's talked about, healthy awareness that this is just part of who we are. It's sacred, it's beautiful, it's, that Sanskrit definition says it right there. What was it?
Cosmic matrix of sacred space.
Yeah, so giving it just a higher context. And I feel like we're programmed through different ways to really debase that and shame that area. So we're going to take a quick break, and we will be right back. All right, so welcome back, and just had a little tea break and stretch, and ready to dive back in. So one of the things we were discussing was the foundational nature of the sexual connection in a partnership or any kind of relationship. So and we started to touch on the shame that sometimes forms, and then you were kind of touching on all the feelings and perceptions that come up around just, do they want to have sex? Do they not? I want to, and the lack of communication, how that builds up and creates all these other issues. So, I think, could you?
I'm now remembering.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, my answer. One answer is that how to deal with that is a combination of taking care of yourself and then also clearing the air. It's great to be able to do your own processing. That's just a stupid thing that I've been thinking since I was 12, and I've got to work on that myself. And as much as possible, take care of yourself. But then then also it can be very quick to just clear the air. Like, what were you thinking when I went to touch your shoulder? And I might have misinterpreted it completely and not even know. Cheryl suddenly heard a bird
Right.
song, and she was, oh, what was that? You know, and I had no idea. That wasn't even about me.
Like innocent curiosity.
Right, and odds are that you most likely have misinterpreted it, because if there's a sense of, it could be shame, any of those underlying blocks, you'll default to that. You'll go, oh, it must be me,
right?
You know, and that it must be me is distancing. And one of the things we teach is, are your words, my actions, are they going to bring us closer together, or are they going to create a division that can quickly become an expanded distance between what you really wanted to express and what you really want? And so I would say, as you move from shame, is finding out, what do you want? What do you desire? What do you want to experience? And then there's shame around that, as in, do I deserve to have desire? Do I deserve to have wants?
Yeah.
And then can I, in a way, express those to my partner? Do I have some facility in really saying what it is that I want? And then there's the receiving part of it. And then that's where the fun of relationship really lies. I would say the fun and the challenge of relationship is that there's always this subtle negotiation that's happening. So we advocate, we'll bring it to the surface. Because it sounds like it might be easier to not speak it and not think you're going to somehow inflame, trigger your partner. And yet it's that very thing that, if it is said and in safety and in space holding, it's the very thing that can move you out of feeling shame and move you into a place where you're actually sharing something that you want to share.
Yeah, I noticed that there's this kind of this tendency to go one way or the other, where some couples might just withhold and not communicate in a desire to not inflame, and then other dynamics the communication becomes inflaming because of how it's communicated. Instead of expressing a desire, it becomes, you did this or you did that.
That's a critical differentiation that you just identified.
Yeah.
That's great. Is that when you share from a vulnerable state, like I'm afraid or I'm anxious or whatever it is, rather than you blah, 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 blah. Very, very different.
And you notice he even finger pointed. It's
right
there. Nobody likes that.
No. The distance thing, you're saying, you get right away. Like, you're like, whoa, I hate. So,
because we've all been 2-year-olds, and someone is like, no.
So the critical point, I feel, is taking responsibility for what's going on inside of you. That it's not your partner's fault. Basically, nothing's ever your partner's fault.
Right.
You're people just being themselves. Right. And if you're getting upset, it's your own shit.
Yeah.
Now, the partner might be able to help you with that if you share vulnerably.
So let's say you share vulnerably. You take care of yourself. So taking care of yourself, you're, just to kind of recap that, you're taking care of yourself, you're looking at, was this something I was told when I was 4, and so I'm projecting it, you're soothing. You guys talk about self-soothing a lot, or maybe we get to that in a little bit. You're taking care of yourself, and then you're going, I'm going to express this, I'm going to share vulnerably, I'm going to ask for my desire, what I want. What if your partner can't help you with it?
That has to do with your expectations. You can't expect your partner to help you. You can't expect your partner to meet you in your desire, or to hear what you're saying, or to support you emotionally. You can only do your best, and do your part of the side, your side of it.
Mm-hmm.
If your partner can't do his or her side, then you have to just accept that, continue, go back to working on yourself,
mm-hmm.
or try to sell them.
Try to sell them?
Try to sell them.
Okay,
Yeah.
tell me about that.
Yes, tell me about that.
You kind of pitch it to them.
You pitch it.
Okay.
That's a crude way of saying it. But another way of saying it would be continuing to share.
Right.
Like, okay, the first share bounced off.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not going to freak out. I'm not going to feel rejected, ideally, hopefully.
Right.
I'm going to try sharing
Try again.
So share in a different way. And sometimes it just takes a little time.
Mm-hmm.
Like the first response from your partner might be, you know.
Sure. Right.
And so then you don't go, well, thanks a lot for not supporting me. You know, it's more like,
right.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Which is finding your empathy space, which can be particularly challenging when you yourself feel defensive, and defensiveness really always comes from the past. It's reminding you of a time when you didn't feel good about yourself, when you weren't able to navigate well. And so because our brains are associative, we associate, and it will jump to something that happened in the past. Because in the moment, all someone's doing is moving their mouth, and words are coming out. Right. You know, at its most fundamental level, all that's happening, right? Even though you feel like I'm going to die, I can't take another breath. This is the end of the relationship. This is the end of my work. This is the end of my world.
Yes.
And what the check-in was actually happening.
Some noises and some movements.
Some noises and some movements.
Yeah.
You know,
it's a good checkpoint.
Yeah.
Just come back to that neutral.
So, yeah, as much as possible, you try to divide content from feeling. Like, some content coming from Cheryl might be something about something she wants to buy, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the technical content. This thing, and it costs this much, and we might disagree whether that's a useful thing to have and spend that much money or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's the feeling part. She has a desire.
Mm-hmm.
I might have an insecurity.
Mm-hmm.
I might have a fear. So you kind of put the content aside for the moment, and just focus on, well, what do we need to do to help our feelings?
Mm-hmm.
And that once because those pop up right off the bat, and then so you kind of try to massage those things, not completely divorced from content. Like, oh, I noticed you're feeling fear, or
I see that you're really excited about the idea of purchasing.
Yes. So
an RV, which is what I'm really excited about lately.
Right. Yeah. So I have to work on putting aside my whatever is going on with me to try to allow the complete information set, data set to come out, rather than stop that before it gets started.
Right. So notice he's not taking responsibility for my feelings. He's not feeling like he's got to give me all the reasons why it's impractical to buy an RV. He's not.
Okay. Yeah.
He's ultimately not responsible, and ultimately I don't want him to feel that. I want to express my excitement. And Seva's very wise. What he's learned over the years is that, and I think particularly women, they tend to have a greater range of emotional expression. I would say expression, not that I have more emotions. I simply have a range, and that I'm invested in sharing my range of expression. And
It's part of your lifeblood.
Right. It is part of my lifeblood.
To combine the content with the expression.
Right. Right. But he's not feeling in any way responsible for. He's not trying to bash my excitement.
Oh no, I gotta go get an RV tomorrow.
That's right.
Right.
Damn!
Or feel responsible. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Or tell me why it's the reasons that would.
Or convince her that to just excise that out of her brain.
Mm-hmm.
If I could just go into the probe, go to the RV molecule.
That's right. The one that
Nerves.
keeps.
And that's the last thing you want to hear when you're feeling excited is to someone to reason you out of that.
Totally.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, even if we do reason out of it, the first step is not reason.
right, that can come later.
Wow, that is such a cool idea.
And it could even be, tell me
We
more.
can riff on that.
Yeah, tell me
for
more. Always
15
good.
or 20 minutes about how fun it would be. And now that part of her feels satisfied.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And then we can deal with practicality.
Yeah. So we shared some emotional excitement, even if it wasn't at first, you didn't have enthusiasm for it, but you recognized that I was having enthusiasm and that it's an entry point for connection.
Yeah.
And that works out really well when there's sexual contact. Because there are often times when one partner is more excited about the
Pretty much
idea
always,
of
it's going to be
contact.
some variation.
Really?
It's not like we're not either going to be both 70% or both 75% or both 25%. Yeah, it's going to be off by some percent all the time, pretty much all the time. But that's fine. That's natural.
Right.
We're not the same person.
Right. Right.
So it's just accepting the difference and then finding ways to blend or having one become more enthusiastic or one become less enthusiastic.
Is there one that's better to become more enthusiastic?
Well, I think to prioritize, not to favor, but to lean towards enthusiasm is a good thing because enthusiasm is joyful.
Right.
It's pleasant. It's fun. It's an energy of itself. It's kind of like one person, one or the other will be somewhat more energetic or less energetic. And so, if the person who's less energetic doesn't block the energy, that can flow and both can rise.
Right.
I mean, let's just say she's at 75% and I'm at 25% about something. Her enthusiasm, I let her enthusiasm be at 75, and I start to take it in. Okay, now I'm up to 50, and now my 50 bumped her up to 80.
Okay.
And so just got to, at some point, okay, let's go. Let's do it.
Right.
You're
Which,
100%.
right.
Yeah.
Right. And I think of that
We reach a threshold
where you're both
where something can happen. We take action.
Right.
So that the person that's maybe less interested in that moment maybe needs to lean in a bit
Yes.
more.
It's a beautiful way.
A useful practice.
Yeah.
I like that idea of the lean in because it's this that, as Seva said earlier, it's registering unconsciously. Our bodies are always telling a story. And I would say that women in particular are very attuned to the merest little bit of pullback. Because it feels good to be all in, and I would say that for a woman to really desire to open her yoni and her heart, that's foundational. Like if there's a pullback, that doesn't lead to opening.
Right.
It leads to what's going on. I need to know. I don't feel safe, and all the things. And it could have been something so innocuous. But yet there's that attunement that happens, and then if I don't check in about what I think that was about, I'm going to create a story that's never positive.
Mm-hmm.
And then that starts to infiltrate relationship space.
Saying the word lean in is like saying, it's like the practice of being supportive.
Yeah.
If Cheryl is in the practice of coming to hug me, and I'm in the practice of nothing,
Uh-huh.
eventually her enthusiasm wanes
Right.
for hugging. So exactly like sex, every way that I can be supportive of her energy and her movement toward me and her physical connection to me, that reinforces that pathway.
Mm-hmm.
That she likes to come towards me,
Right.
emotionally and physically.
So, sorry to interrupt, but so let's say you're in the position of the person that's 25% when your partner's 50 or 75.
Yeah.
And maybe you had a long day, you're exhausted, you've got things to do, things on your mind, you want to sit down and read a book, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
And so what if you're in that place and you're like, I don't want to lean in right now. You have that desire to go, that lean out kind of, not right now. So from that person's point of view, how does their experience also get honored if they're not, they really need to, is it just a matter of communicating, this is what I need right now? How do they hold that while being sensitive to the other person that has this enthusiasm and desire for, connection?
Well, I can speak to the 25% side person, which I am more in the role of generally. I am hypoglycemic, so energy is often a problem for me. And I'm also an introvert, so being by myself is often my priority.
And awesome.
My sort of my default state.
Yeah.
But what I've learned over the years is that, the first thing is to not automatically be a no.
Yeah.
That's just rejection.
Right.
So I'm not automatically going to be a no. To put that in. So then I let some of the enthusiasm or the interest or the connection, desire come in. And I notice that it has an effect on me. And the effect is a good effect. Just being isolated by myself isn't always the best, the most healing thing for me to do, or the most good feeling thing for me to do, even though I want that, or I have a habit of that.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
It doesn't necessarily feel the best, even for an introvert, to be by himself.
Mm-hmm.
The connection comes in, and now I'm not thinking about, I'm tired. I'm operating a different energy system, which is, really, that's what happened? That sounds cool. Or, snuggling feels pretty good, actually, right at the moment. And it takes me out of my isolation.
Oh, that actually feels better.
Yes.
That was like a 30-year process of learning how to.
And we're going to tell you right now.
Not reject, not automatically pull away.
Right. So your automatic instinct was to go, no, not right now. Stop.
I'm not in the mood.
I'm tired.
I was completely attached to my programming, whatever it was. Like I wanted to go to see an action movie tonight, and Cheryl wants to take a bath or go in the hot tub and catch up for the day. And I go, fuck. And then, 25 years ago, I would have been angry and insisted on going. And then I'd go to the movie and it sucked.
Right.
It was terrible. And now I feel like shit from watching it. And then I come home and now I feel like shit because Cheryl's not happy that I did that. Or whatever I was at the time. So it was a very hard thing to learn for me. But I did learn it, and now it's great.
And what I think he also learned and shares is that lean in. Give your best 5 minutes.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. It's worth 5 minutes at least.
presence,
Yeah.
which is such a Sedona word, withholding space. Yet, giving someone your full attention and your full presence usually starts to fill them up pretty quickly.
Yeah.
It's when you try to avoid, and the avoidance is felt on an unconscious level, and it's felt. And now you've got to spend more time trying to catch up in a way because your partner feels it.
Right.
Even if you're saying different words. Like, of course, I'm really, really interested in what you have to say right now.
Right. So you.
Yeah, what's the score of the game? Oh, right.
Yeah.
So.
And then there's this like build up of longing for that presence.
Yes.
And then it needs to be this bigger thing. Whereas
Yes.
if there's consistent, deep,
Uh-huh.
real presence.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And I even believe in being over present or over supportive. Exaggerated supportiveness. Going beyond, if she says that we should go out and do some weeds, pull some weeds right now, and I was kind of thinking of having a beer or whatever. Really? We get to go out and do some weeds?
Yes!
All right!
Right, at which point I'm going to go, wow, maybe I'm not as enthusiastic. Maybe I'd rather have a beer. So,
exactly. So it sort of clears that space.
Right.
So it clears the need or clears the interest.
Mm-hmm.
So that what's really something
because
else.
no one's pushing and no one's pulling.
Right.
Do you think that quality, meeting the excitement of the other, do you think that tends to be, I know it's kind of hard to box these things out, but does it tend to be a masculine-feminine dynamic more often where the woman's excited about something and the man needs to lean into being supportive or even overly supportive in some cases for her to get that nourishment?
Yes.
Do you think that's...
I think there's a gender difference, not absolute. There's some percentage of difference, I would say.
More so the case, you think?
More so that the woman tends to be more expressive and excited.
And tends to be even more invested in a relationship.
Yes.
Simply because whether that's been a matter of training or expectation or whatever it is, what I have noticed and what Seva has noticed is it does tend to be if it's a male-female partnership, that the woman in the partnership has a deep, deep investment in the relationship. And that's not to say that her partner doesn't have a deep relationship. It just seems to be expressed differently. And it's when those differences happen in the expression. Seva and I have been together it'll be 9 years ago that we met each other in Sedona in May. And I feel his investment in the relationship. Yet his particular style is not flowery or like it's not a particularly what would be the hallmarks of what we think romance is. It's not the poetry or the diamond bracelet or all the things that we think as women we think that means something. Like that means, well, for me it is this presence. That's my diamond bracelet.
And that's
I got chimes on that.
I love that. Yes. Thank you, chimes. I love that.
The oracle of relationship has spoken through the chimes.
Yeah. I've always been unconventional. And so I knew that I wasn't like, okay, I'm the warrior, king, powerhouse, alpha male kind of guy who goes out and gets things for his woman, brings the meat. I could have been a good hunter, I think.
Yes, I think so. You would have run down any bracelet.
After that level, I was never like, a great networker and political activist or whatever, that would or have like an amazing technical skill, like was a great coder, anything like that, or a musician. So I had to rely on some other things.
Yeah.
Which I learned was presence and paying attention and giving positive feelings all the time.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which
and
I mean,
that's really become more
to
important.
me, that's, I mean, as a woman, I feel like that's top. I mean, great if he can make a table or you know what I mean, drive a tractor. That's great too.
That's great.
You know, but that definitely tops it. I think for me, that's just hearing it and feeling it, and it's so valuable.
That does seem to top it in my experience, professional experience working with clients.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you think that's an area that's particularly lacking in many of the?
Particularly lacking, yes.
You're obviously working with people that have challenges in relationships, so you're maybe seeing more of that, but it's particularly lacking that specific.
Yeah,
issue.
well, everywhere I go and whenever I see couples together, I'm noticing how that it's just something's frequently off a little bit.
Yeah.
That there's not an appreciation of something, and then the other person feels rejected in some way, and that makes them upset.
Lack of appreciation.
Yes. Yes, and
or acknowledged.
That creates a story, and those stories can become insidious. It's like the bad seeds. You're not weeding your garden every day.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not weeding your emotional garden in some way, those things can start to grow that you don't want to grow.
Mm-hmm.
And those can be resentment, which it doesn't sometimes take very much, especially when you have not developed, or I have not developed self-trust. And if I'm looking to him to somehow give me that sense of trusting myself, it's doomed. It's not going to happen. No other human being can ever do that for you.
Mm-hmm.
It is the ongoing process of diving into self. We're fortunate in that we've created lives where we have space for that. And yet I would posit there's no more important way to be spending your time is giving yourself your self-relationship time.
Mm-hmm. That's a big one. Yeah, so can you talk more about that? Like, what are some of the ways that, maybe some specific ways that you both really nurture your self-relationship?
Yeah, so cultivating self-relationship. For me, I need a great deal of self-care. Mm-hmm. I have a particular nervous system that's very attuned, and it needs tweaking. It needs a lot of tweaking. So I had to learn self-care, ongoing self-care, and my primary daily self-care is meditation. Mm-hmm. So I do start every day with some sort of meditation, be it a guided meditation I'm listening to or one that I'm doing on my own. Mm-hmm. I would say that's the foundation, and then I feed myself well. Mm-hmm. I give myself experiences that I can express myself. And I'm in a partnership, I'm in a relationship, which in the best way is low maintenance and high joy.
Woohoo! That is a part of self-care.
Yeah.
Having that, right?
Yeah, I am not interested in ongoing drama in my relationship. Mm-hmm. It sucks up way too much energy. I personally don't have the resources, right, to have a relationship that would have those where it would get crunchy and there's tears and defensiveness and door slamming. I can't do it. I won't do it. Mm-hmm. So that's my self-care, is that I do have a partnership that nourishes me so deeply that then I can, as I nourish myself, I can then offer that to my clients. And that's another part of my joy.
It is pretty amazing to see clients get her transmission. That's what I call it. because there's words, but then there's just, she models a great self-radiance.
Thank you.
So yes, practicing self-radiance, like meditation would be one. You're going within, and then inside you become present with your true self, you could say, and then now it comes out, rather than running a bunch of trips. So I meditate too, and then also exercise is a big one for me. Being in nature, Sedona, it's a great place to live for that.
Yeah. And what about space? How much space do you each feel like you need and want to take? And are there differences that you think, that you perceive in different dynamics, different couples, where some couples need more space than others? Are there even cases, this is kind of a side question if you get to it, something I've been thinking about lately, like, are there cases where certain people are okay with this very sort of codependent reality where they are totally, sharing space, and like, does that even exist? Where that could be healthy? I have my feelings about that, but in general, it seems to me that having healthy amounts of space is really key, from the partnership. And so, could you speak to either of those things?
Absolutely. I think some space is needed.
Yeah.
There's a number of factors there. One is that you run the risk, if you spend too much time together, you run the risk of at some point you don't even know it, but your boundaries are being overridden, and that person's reality is leaking into yours. If that person is like a superstar in something, maybe that, like a top level musician or something, or actor or something.
Right.
Maybe you're absorbing that, and maybe that's good for a period of time. But in general, you have to maintain a certain amount of your own identity, or else you start to feel disoriented. And at some point, if you feel too disoriented, then you are going to react against it in some way. Even if you have a programming that says that that's wrong, you'll just do it because you can't stop yourself.
Right.
So having the self-awareness to know that, okay, I'm getting a little bit too disoriented from loss of identity. I have to reestablish that. And that's okay for both people to do that. Absolutely.
And you don't share a bedroom, or do you?
No.
We don't.
Yeah, you have, like, Cheryl has this whole floor, which I'm like, so epic. And then you have the downstairs, so. Yeah.
So I will speak to that. Seva and I had a long distance relationship. And so then when we did have a week or two together, it was very, very intense and juicy, and it's just every moment we wanted to share together. And then when it did come to the fact that now we were going to share a home, Seva was adamant that he would have his own bedroom. And because of the programming of everyone, it was like, but no, partners, they are in the same bed, in the same bedroom. And he held his boundary. His boundary was he had to have his own room. And I have my own room. And I would say now that I've had that experience in my own bedroom, my own bathroom, my own space here, that I most likely would not return to that. Because I found my own need to have that time where I am in my own sovereign space. So I was resistant, and now what I would say is that's for each couple to discover and not go to the default that, oh no, we're married or we are in a partnership. Is find out. Talk about things that you didn't think that you wanted to talk about.
It's so much about knowing oneself.
Yeah.
and making progress that way. Some couples might be great, sharing a room, and they find their alone time at work, let's say all day. But something we notice about couples is that particularly those that might have two jobs, even in a family, let's say kids, they come back and it's, oh no, now there's a whole different set of things they have to do at home, and 10 o'clock comes and they're tired and they just want to sleep, or one wants to go to sleep and one doesn't, one wants to have sex and one doesn't.
Right.
It's a pretty challenging situation.
Yeah.
But I think organization really helps a lot in those situations.
Scheduling. Planning.
Yes.
Making dates.
Yeah. So
well, at least like whatever you're going to do is done. Whatever you have to do with your family is done, like say by 9 o'clock, giving you an extra hour at least, and then maybe even 8:30. And so then there's a tendency to okay, now I'm going to go read a book or watch TV or whatever, go out for a drink, and it's different. You're still separated again. So to at least think about what I was mentioning earlier, that it actually can feel the best if you are doing something together for a while. It could be massaging shoulders. It could be just cuddling or sharing, getting something off your chest or whatever. At least check in.
Right.
Yes. Right. Don't
Prioritize
assume.
it.
Don't assume. That would be another foundational piece of relationship. Is don't assume. Like, yes, I'm intuitive, but I cannot read his mind.
Right.
And it's when I think I know what he's thinking that I'm creating some sort of scenario that I wouldn't want to be part of. And now I've made him the star of something that he doesn't want to be part of. So don't assume. And I think you said something. I think you said the word scheduling. And I would advocate at times do schedule intimacy times. Do schedule sex. Even though that we work from our home, we set our own schedules, and we have our own bedrooms. It can feel easy sometimes to not have those connection times. And I will say what we have done now, because we really do like sleeping in our own beds, is that one of us will go to the other one's room in the morning. So we get that cuddle time. It's kind of, for me, it's meditation, and then there's the cuddling time, which could lead to sex or not. It's in some ways it's such a continuum now that I feel in some ways we're always making love to each other.
Yeah, I definitely promote the concept of always making love.
Right. It's beautiful. Oh.
Through your words, through your gazes, whatever.
Right.
So I think we've also, at least I have the advocate for couples that have grown children or don't have children, that just have sex immediately when you come home. 5:30, 6 o'clock. Either cuddle or take a shower together or have sex right then, because you're still running on some momentum.
Got it. And then you can sort of chill out from
there.
there.
It doesn't matter what happens the rest of the night.
Right.
It's not like,
Are
okay,
we
so now we're going to come home. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, yeah.
You come home, you fix dinner, go out to dinner, and have some drinks or whatever. Now it's 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
The night's gone.
Right. Yeah. I want to go back to something that you said, and just a little bit ago, when you were talking about your self-care. And you were saying you need to have a relationship that is high joy, low maintenance.
Yes.
So, of course, everything we're talking about is sort of moving in that direction of how do you have that kind of relationship that's low maintenance, high joy. Yeah, so like, what, could you kind of, some key ingredients? Obviously, we've covered a lot of things. How much does compatibility play into that? How much of it is the work you do on yourself? I guess it's kind of a broad topic again, but I just want to like come back to that because I feel like that's what a lot of us want is not just any relationship, not just a relationship, but a relationship that's high joy, low stress, low maintenance, And I think a lot of people will opt not to have a relationship rather than have one that's high maintenance and high stress. So, like, how do you suss that out and create that within yourself, maybe is the question. I notice, like, for myself, I might have a lot of needs or desires that come up, and learning to communicate that in a way that's really not attacking, that really comes from this, like, this is about me and what I want, what I desire, and I guess, the other part of that question is, like, is there any limit to that? Is there any limit to how much you can ask for what you want in relationship? Does that become high maintenance? You know what I mean? So...
It's a super good question.
Yeah, that's a good
question. I'd like to start with the very last thing that you said, which was, I think, and help me rewind on that. There was something that you just said about, a limit, right.
What you can ask for.
Right. So I'm going to start it this way. There's no limit to the amount of joy that you can experience in a relationship. To me, there is no upper limit to that.
It's a renewable resource.
Right.
As long as you're alive.
Yeah.
You can tap into that.
Yeah. Right. Cool.
Is that complete?
That was my complete. I was just so captivated by the idea, and I wanted to really express that I don't think there is an upper limit to it. As long as you're willing to keep growing and keep questioning. And keep questioning, why do I believe what I believe about this relationship? What I found is I have to keep digging. Oh, I believe that because my dad left my mom when I was 16, so now my story is that all men will leave. So I noticed sometimes with Seva, if we have spent the night together and then he gathers his things to take back downstairs to his room, I have this little, like,
inner child.
He's like, he's leaving. In fact, my voice even changed. I was like, he's leaving.
Right.
So I think it's that willing to question why do I believe what I believe? And it typically has nothing to do with him. It's something from the past, some idea about relationship, like partners sleep in the same bedroom. Things that are not questioned, yet when they're questioned, there's a lot of freedom. So there's a lot of liberation. And if there's a feeling of freedom and liberation in a relationship, there is no upper limit. Nobody's boxing, nobody's then crunching it down to something. And the crunching down only comes from fears. There's some fear, something happened in the past, or something happened with your partner where this, and I was going to say trust. So you said, like, how do you get to the low stress, high joy?
Yeah.
I trust myself. We've built a tremendous amount of trust over the years because there's been that presence. Like if something does come up, like I know that it will be addressed. Not to say that you can't say to your partner, here's the desire part. If you're not in that space for the moment where you really can listen to their desires and feel enthusiastic, it's well within your self bill of rights to say, I see you're so excited about this. Can we have an agreement to come back to this topic and name a time and then do it? So I think I hit some of the points of how you get to there. It's questioning, why do I believe what I believe? And then the presence with your partner gives that sense of trust. So any topic can be broached, even the ones that they feel like you're gonna die.
And you take joy in that.
And
You take joy in broaching those topics that are
and
unearthing some of that, because that's, I guess, another part where it's like
might not
feel
before you
joyful,
start,
right?
It might be an anxious feeling, but at the end, that connection feels much tighter.
So that's the trust part. That's we can approach anything and
Right.
trust that we're going to bring presence to it and
Right.
get to a place where you feel better, actually.
Right.
But the fact is that whatever's interfering is going on anyway.
Right.
So, if you have a desire for something, you haven't told your partner, that desire is still in you. That's the reality. It's affecting everything.
Yeah.
So all you're doing is just bring it to the surface.
So, okay, this is because the reason that I ask this is I feel like there's a way that people can think, oh, sitting and processing everything and talking is high maintenance, right? Whereas what I am getting, and how I feel too, is that the willingness to be present and develop trust and really good communication skills for those things that come up and taking responsibility, etc., prevents the really high maintenance stuff where you build up the anger and then you're fighting and then it all tumbles out of control, or you have these passive aggressive, or you're just whatever it is, So that's why I ask, because it's like reframing. Some people might frame sitting down and being present, leaning in and learning all these skills. She's 75 and I'm 20. Right? It could seem like that's a lot of work to some people. And that might be like, that's too much work, it's high maintenance, I'd rather not do it. So,
the fallout from not taking that time is hugely high maintenance.
Hugely high maintenance.
Now you're locked into what feels like sometimes like a life or death struggle. Like, no, this is my way. No, you got to see it my way. You have to concede in some way to me so that I can feel good about this situation. And it never feels good. Ultimately, it does not feel good to. I'm going to use the word compromise, I'm going to replace it with negotiate. So instead of feeling like I've got to compromise, he doesn't really want the RV, we can negotiate.
To start.
Negotiate. But we negotiate. Like, maybe we'll rent a pop-up trailer for a weekend so we can actually have an experience, now bring it into reality and find that place. So I think the willingness to negotiate and not polarize is what ultimately makes
and to
something.
accept the fact that you have to negotiate.
You just accept the fact.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's not like something magical that you get together and suddenly you're in sync with everything.
Yeah, see, that's what
It's not the case.
At the beginning, it feels like that.
Be the case.
Though at the beginning, like all that new relationship
first,
energy,
yes.
it's like
when you're in love, it's a completely different
It's
situation, and it might seem like high joy and low maintenance,
right?
But it never lasts because that's how nature made.
It's not sustainable.
Right.
We talked about this. We had a great hike.
We did.
and talked about how if you looked at the brain scan of someone who was newly in love and the brain scan of someone who was experiencing the effects of cocaine, they would look very similar because the parts of the brain that light up the high of new relationship, the thrill, the seeking, will I get it, will I not get it, all of that is
My apologies.
all of that is what at first feels like, I feel like at home. I've met my match. This is my soulmate. What's the other? Twin flame. That's the other one.
Yeah.
I've met that twin flame. Well, it's your brain.
It's actually your brain.
It's your brain on this chemical cocktail of things that feel great, and I love that, and that is beautiful. And you could decide that I'm just going to have a series of relationships like that. Which is kind of like the serial monogamy.
Right.
It's like 1.5 to 2 years. This is great. You don't see anything about your partner other than I cannot wait to be with them. I idolize you. You're everything I've ever wanted, and it's not sustainable, and it will ultimately become a high maintenance, low joy situation because the expectation of that somehow continuing without the foundational pieces.
Right.
And once the dopamine wears off, then your self-confidence is now back to normal again.
Mm-hmm.
Your empathy is now back to normal again. Your
Right.
insecurities are now back to normal again.
Right.
And now you're feeling the same old horrible things you've always felt before you got into this high state.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't have some of the stuff practices and skills we've been talking about, then you only have one choice, and that's to break up. It's too painful.
Right.
Yeah, so now you're into mega pain. And hopefully have an opportunity to have some of that more looking in word. We've had many, many years of being in relationship with each other and former partners, and so there's more of a sense of like, how do I want to be in relationship? And the skills they just have to have some fundamental skills around communication.
So do you feel like there's a certain point that you've hit where the skills that you practice become so integrated that it doesn't feel like work? It doesn't feel like it just flows.
Yes.
Bingo!
Yeah.
Yes, that's
it's
it.
actually easier.
Yeah, because that's what, no one wants to be like, I have to work all the time to make this thing.
Yes. That's exactly
Go.
right. That it's easier to spend 30 seconds to 5 minutes giving presence in a way that feels supportive to the other person and feels like love than to automatically resist and all the consequences that result in that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and your skills, when you are able to just automatically make that switch, like from resistant to I'm going to connect. I'm going to be present. It can be so fast you don't even notice you've done it. And, and being present really doesn't take much energy. That's the funny thing. Being in pain and resisting and fighting takes up a lot of energy, actually. There, you go through a number of levels till when you get to the anger part. And anger is the release of all this pain that's built up.
Yeah.
And anger can feel good for a moment, but then something has been hurt. Something has been broken. Either a physical object or a person's feelings.
Yeah.
And then there's days or weeks of cleanup from that, if ever it gets cleaned up. So it's so easy to just relax and change your time expectation. Okay, you are going to clean the dishes or whatever for 15 minutes. And it has to start right now. So it'll be done in 15 minutes. But no, suddenly there needs to be 5 minutes of, instead of doing something active, now it's just something passive. Oh, I'm just going to relax, I'm just going to listen. I'm just going to smile.
But it's that relaxed listening place that does take some practice. Because if you're listening with, what are they going to say about me? Am I taking this as an attack? Am I pre-loading my response? So it does take some presence about presencing, and it does take some practice, which is something that we do.
It does take some practice.
We do with our individual clients and with couples, is that we model it, and then they have a sense of, how does that feels really good. And really, it's giving that sense of, I am really here. I'm not thinking 10 thoughts ahead of you. I'm simply here with you right now. And that is the real magic space. Because then that space feels expansive. And it feels good. And very practically, it's where things can clear quickly.
The coming into presence right off the bat is kind of like a microcosm of having sex right away when you get home, rather than putting it off till late at night and maybe never. It's just jumping right on it. Yeah.
Right.
Jump right on it, and then it gives both people such a sense of relief, or accomplishment, or completion. Oh, okay, that's complete.
Right. Yeah, because I can imagine if you keep putting it off, it's this distracting thought. When are we going to talk?
Right.
When are we going to
yeah.
have sex? When are we going to...
Right.
Exactly.
And then you can't actually dive into the other things you want to focus on. So you can see how sort of prioritizing that in a way allows your mind to be a lot freer, like your energy to be freer. Just address it right in the moment.
Just jump right on it.
Jump right on it and right into it.
It might only take a few minutes, and then suddenly the whole rest of the night is completely up.
Yeah.
You don't even, we don't need to talk. We don't need to deal with anything. Just do whatever we want.
It's this beautiful, proactive frame. Is like, if it's here, presence, be in it, address it. It's pretty much a practice for life. It's what meditation does give a foundation for, is that I'm here with my thoughts right now. I'm not anyplace else. And I would say that every being thrives on that kind of experience. I'm going to ask for a time check.
Yes,
because I noticed that...
Actually, we'll just close up here. Before we close up, just maybe one last question, brief, one sentence, and then I also want you to share with everyone how people can reach you and if you have any events coming up. So one or two sentence answer. If there was one thing that you could tell your younger 28, 30-year-old self in relationship specifically, or as a sexual being, either one, like what would it be?
Yeah, I heard that question and I was thinking about it. It's kind of a tough one, but I think what I came up with is really being true to what your true motivations are for yourself, and reveal them to your partner. Let them be known to your partner.
I really like your speaking to your 30-year-old self.
Yeah.
So, speaking to my 30-year-old sexual self, I would be like, you have no idea how good it's going to get.
Right on. Yeah.
So that's what I would tell my 30-year-old self, is like, you are just beginning in some ways as a sexual being.
Right.
So you asked us to say how someone or someones can contact us. Seva and I have a website. It's loveandsexmastery.com. And I have an event for women called, it's Women Healing Women, Level 2, The Spiritual Path of Feminine Pleasure. And that's happening here in Sedona, May 19th through the 21st. And that's incredibly safe and sacred space for women to really have that experience of what does it feel like to make pleasure a priority? And then how is that a spiritual practice? So I'm going to leave it there because that's for the women to find out.
And I will vouch, I've taken level 1, and it's really powerful, amazing. So, and definitely want to take level 2 at some point. So.
Yes, so that's also on the website, loveandsexmastery.com.
Anything else?
Yes, and we also have a page on our website called Couples Retreat.
Yes.
And in there we list 15 it depends on whether you're going to do outdoor or indoor activities, but 15 to 25 modules of things to work on as couples. And so the couple can come for anywhere from 1 to 3 nights and select the number of modules they want to work on.
Cool.
During that time.
So it's like a menu.
It's a menu.
It's a module menu of the most common topics that people come to explore with us. And it's not just the crunchy, difficult ones. We have some really fun things to do as well.
One of our modules is exploring the G-spot. Find out how to find it and what it can do.
And yes, it really exists.
Yes, it really exists.
As we started the conversation with Yonis,
and with G-spot.
And with G-spot.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you both so much. This has been awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay. Say bon voyage to everyone.
Bye from Sedona.
Bye bye.